Crews are aligned. We are into a countdown. We have attention. Go. Crews are off. All three crews have come off cleanly, and it is Princeton with an early advantage. One deck over Navy. Navy one deck over the engineers. Princeton extending their lead over the midshipmen. Princeton by a third of a length over Navy. Navy by a third of a length over the engineers. Princeton is extending their lead over Navy to a half of length. Really come out of the gate strongly in this freshman 8. Through the 250, it is Princeton by 3/4 of a length over Navy. Navy by 3/4 of a length over MIT. Princeton looking very strong in this first 500. Very long into this wind, as does Navy, but Princeton getting the early advantage from a very hot start. Navy is pulled away from MIT, having a seat open. Princeton over Navy by almost a length. Princeton coxswain has the Navy bow ball, is calling for a press. As we come into the 500, it is Princeton by just under a full length over Navy, with Navy a length and a quarter over MIT. Princeton is flirting right now with open water, with an open water advantage. Coming off of their move, Navy needs to respond. Both of these, Navy and Princeton, look very strong at this point, very clean as the water has become much better in this second 500, but it is still Princeton with a 1-length advantage over Navy, Navy with a 2-length advantage over MIT. MIT falling off the pace. Princeton looks very controlled, as does Navy, as we get through the 750 mark of this race. Navy is calling for a press right here. Princeton calling to hold them off. But Princeton is still sitting at that 1-length advantage. MIT back. 900 meters into this race, still Princeton 1 length over Navy in this freshman lightweight 8 race. MIT well back. Through the 1,000, we have Princeton by 1 length over Navy, maybe a foot of open. Princeton's on the move. Navy is trying to respond, but Princeton is still sitting at that 1 length advantage. Navy well back. Little bobble in the Navy boat. That doesn't seem to hurt their speed right now, as Navy goes on to the move. Navy trying to get back on terms with Princeton, get their bow ball back into the Princeton coxswain. In the 3rd quarter, still Princeton, 1 length over Navy. Navy, 5 lengths over MIT. Navy closing that open water, and they're getting their bow ball back into the Princeton coxswain. With 7:50 to go, it is still Princeton, just under a 1 length advantage over Navy. Navy well ahead of MIT. See, these crews are starting to look a little bit labored dealing with this headwind on this cold opening weekend. It's not as much pep as there was about 500 or 750 meters ago. But both crews seem to be fading from speed at the same rate. Princeton still a length over Navy. Navy well ahead of MIT. Coming into the last 500 now. The Princeton coxswain is trying to gather her crew together to break open water. Navy is already on the move, getting their bow ball up to the stroke seat of Princeton, We've come through into the last 500. Navy is on the move. Navy with their bow ball to Princeton's 7 seed. Navy's still on the move, getting their bow ball up another seat, closing another seat on Princeton. Princeton still in control of this race as we're at 3:50 to go. Princeton with a 3/4 length advantage over the midshipmen. Still holding that 1 length to 3/4 of a length margin. Princeton was not able to capitalize on those moments of open water. Navy reeled them back in, but now Princeton is on the move as we're at 200 meters to go. They're back to a 1 length advantage. Navy is maintaining contact, but it looks like it's going to be a little bit too late to actually get back on terms with the Tigers. Princeton's keeping this one length advantage, about deck overlap, as Navy's taking the cadence up, getting their bow ball back into the Princeton stroke seat. At 100 meters to go, it is still Princeton over Navy. Navy well ahead of MIT. It looks like it's going to stay that way as Princeton will take this race, the 1F lightweights, opening weekend over Navy and MIT. Princeton is your winner, Navy second, MIT back.